Family YouTube video. Wherever you are, whatever you may be doing, thank you so much for making Ref Brandon and the Todd family part of your day. We always greatly appreciate it. If you jump on here live here on this Thursday evening, feel free to leave a comment in the comment section down below. Make sure to give the video a like, a thumbs up. If you have not yet, media platforms. You can tell by the title of tonight's video, I'm fixing to do another early 2026 college football prediction video. I try to do about one of these a week. On occasion, I might do twice a week, but usually it's one a week starting end of March, early April, and then going all the way into the beginning of the season. I think I did 22 last year, if memory serves. It was 21 in college and then one in the NFL. So far this year, I've done 3, I think, LSU, Florida State, and Penn State. So tonight will be number 4. Good evening, Keveron. Glad to have you here. As always, Warzone, you got 7-5. When I did my video on them, I had them at 6-6. So me and you were right there pretty much neck and neck. They've got a lot of swing games, but Florida State's quarterback room is just absolutely awful, and it's hard to believe that Florida State, having the rich history they do, that the quarterback room they have is all they have. That's pretty embarrassing. And with their quarterback room the way it is, I just can't see them going, 6-6, 7-5, 8-4. I would say is the absolute ceiling, and that's pushing it. But there's only 2 or 3 games that I think are definite losses. The rest of them are pretty much swing games. But when you have the quarterbacks they do, I'm just not going to give you a lot of advantages in, your pretty much pick 'em games. But before I do tonight's team, I wanted to quickly mention that if you followed me for a long time, you know that I despise ESPN. I can't stand ESPN. I refuse to watch it. Why anybody watches it, I'll never know. It's been a propaganda network for the better part of a decade. They try to brainwash you and give you stuff that is not fact. It's just what they want you to believe. And so many people actually believe it, and that's why, I won't watch it. But it's been that way for a long time, but now more and more people are realizing that, they've got an agenda. They say this stuff for a reason. It's not because they believe it. It's because there's a reason behind it. And I heard yesterday that supposedly ESPN is going to have a meeting next week where they're going to talk about whether or not they want to continue with the college football playoff show that comes out. It usually starts right around Halloween because the first playoff poll comes out around Halloween. Then, of course, they do every Tuesday for the rest of the season up until we, get our playoff teams. The ESPN's having a meeting where they're going to discuss so many people last year. So you mean to tell me people are finally realizing that you're a propaganda network and the things you say aren't true? Basically, ESPN got their feelings hurt because everything they say on those shows is a bunch of absolute total garbage, but people still watch it. And then when ESPN says stuff, they have to contradict their statement the very next week. And they've been doing that for the better part of a decade now. And then when they contradict their statements, people come out and say, wait a minute, well, you didn't say that last week. So ESPN's got their feelings hurt because they've been called out on their brainwashing propagandism. But the show's not going to go away because it gives people something to talk about. Just like these early polls that come out in the middle of June. They don't mean diddly squat come September, but it gives people that are dying for football something to talk about and discuss until the season starts. And I know, Warzone, you're right. I can't have them better than 6-6 or 7-5 because if Ashton Daniels is your best quarterback, then you have no quarterback. I have not seen nothing worth a darn out of Ashton Daniels. And if he's all they've got, unless their defense holds everybody to 10 points, they're in for a long season. But he's their best option, but he sucks. But they said they might do away with the show, and they also might stop releasing polls until at least October because the fans are getting upset about the polls. Now, those things will never go away, but even if ESPN did get rid of that, you still got a sporting news poll, a CBS poll, and you've got Phil Steele's poll, and you've got the coaches poll. And so getting rid of that wouldn't make a difference, but they could get rid of their Tuesday night show, but it won't because people watch. And as long as people watch, they're going to carry it. Hey there, Andrew. Glad to have you here, Andrew. I think it's your, or I'm sorry, that's not Andrew, that's Andrea. Andrea, glad to have you here. And I don't recognize your name. If it's your first time being here, whatever reason made you stop by the channel tonight, thank you very much. Feel free to give the video a like, a thumbs up, and subscribe to the channel, and share the video on all social media platforms. And Warzone, I've been thinking that for a couple of years now, but Florida State keeps swearing them down that, with the big huge contract they gave Jimbo Fisher and the big huge contract they gave Willie Taggart, that they can't afford to fire Mike Norvell too, and then you're paying 3 ex-coaches while you go after a new coach. So supposedly the contract is the only reason why Mike Norvell keeps his job. And I have to admit, I love to tell you when I'm right, but I'm also not one of those people that if I'm wrong about something, all right, like I never said it. When Florida State hired Mike Norvell, I thought they found the right man. I've said it on here numerous times here on the channel that, hey, Florida State's finally found the right guy. Give this man time. They finally found the right guy. And it looked to be that way. And ever since that undefeated regular season, it just seems like Mike Norvell has just never recovered from it. And they went from being a top 5 team to being a top 75 team in a couple of years. And it seems like that undefeated regular season just crushed his spirit, and he's just never, ever, ever recovered from it. But ESPN may have a meeting about that, but that show is not going away. But when you have that show and people watch it, anybody that watches ESPN and puts any stock in anything they say, you're crazy. They are wrong on everything they say. They just say it to get you to watch. They say it for the shock value, and they say it because they have an agenda behind it. But if you can watch it to be entertained, it's fine. But if you watch it to learn something, then you're crazy, because you're not going to learn anything except for how to be brainwashed and have people try to convince you that their propaganda is not propaganda and it's true. But with that show, what can you do? You've got to make it a 30-minute show or an hour show. If you just go on there and release the rankings, the show's going to be over within 3 minutes. So that wouldn't even be a TV show. They would release that, during one of their other shows. They wouldn't have a special show just to release the rankings that takes 3 minutes. So they've got to fill a gap and fill time. So in order to do that, you have to have somebody go on there and talk about why the ratings are what they are, but they change every single week, and they change based on what ESPN wants you to believe. And I've said this for years, that ESPN gets all that money from the SEC. So they're going to try to tell you the SEC is the best. Even if they know that's not so, they're going to tell you that because they're getting money from that network. So, of course, they're going to tell you that because they're in bed with the SEC. It doesn't mean it's true, but people watch it, and they think that ESPN says it, it has to be true. I heard a guy on the radio a couple of years ago that works for the ACC network, which, of course, is also owned by, ESPN. But he said when they have their company meetings behind closed doors, they tell everybody, it doesn't matter what you think, or what you know, do not bash the SEC. Don't say anything bad about the SEC. So if people can hear that and know that and still believe what they say, you're out of your mind. But on to this time around's prediction video, I picked Miami. And the reason why I picked Miami is because a few weeks back I did my predicted over-unders for every team in the Power Four. And Miami was picked to win either 10.5 or 11 games. And I think I even said in that video that, Miami must have a dominant team if they're picked to go pretty much undefeated in the ACC, maybe lose one game, and that's it. So I even said in that video that I might have to come back on here sometime and do a Miami video. Well, today is that time. Now, we know how close they were last year to winning a national championship. And, of course, they've got their third straight transfer quarterback this time around. It's Darian Mensah from Duke, who is really, 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 really good. Now, they've lost a few other pieces, but they've also replaced those pieces that should be just as good, if not better, this year. But they've got kind of a weird schedule. Now, we know, unlike the last couple of years, this year teams only get 1 week off unless you play in week 0, which I still say is the dumbest thing ever. 0 means nothing. So you're going to play a game of football and try to tell me the game's not happening because it's in week 0. If the game's not happening, why is it being played? If it's being played, it's not week 0. So call it week 1A, call it what you want to, but if the game's happening, it's not 0, it's 1. But anyway, that's a different soapbox for a different day. Florida State's first 3 games are all not on Saturday. They open up on a Friday, September the 4th, against Stanford. Then the next week, week 2, they play on a Thursday, September the 10th, against Florida A&M. Then the next week, week 3, they're back on a Friday on the 18th against Wake Forest. So we've got a Friday game, a Thursday game, and a Friday game. And then finally in week 4, they get a Saturday game on September 6th against Central Michigan. Then they open up the month of October, Clemson, and then week 6 is their bye week. And they come back on week 7, October 17th, and they play Florida State. October 24th, Pittsburgh. And then on Halloween, October 31st, North Carolina. Then they open up November on the 7th against Notre Dame. And then on the 14th of November, Duke. And then another Friday game on the 20th of November against Virginia Tech. And then wrapping up the regular season for 28th against Boston College. Now, when I saw this schedule, I said, well, no wonder they're picked to win 10.5 or 11 games. I don't see any way possible they go worse than. If they go worse than 10-2, they should shut their program down, because I think they're just as good, if not better, than last year. And I think their schedule is a little bit worse than last year. I started to pick them to go 12-0, but it's just so hard to go undefeated. I never, ever, ever, ever pick a team to go undefeated. So I had to look at their schedule and say, well, if they don't go undefeated, who do they lose to? And I picked Notre Dame, but really, even though that's a non-conference game, if they go 11-1, they're in the playoffs. So who the loss is doesn't matter. But that's who I picked. If Clemson could have the offense they had Chad Morris's first go-around, I could see Clemson beating them. But the past few years, Clemson struggled to get to 24, and you're not beating the Hurricanes by scoring 24. Hey there, Cole. Glad to have you here on this Thursday night. So I've got them beating Clemson maybe Pittsburgh. You can't ever tell about Pat Narduzzi. He's liable to play the week before Florida State and have the best team you ever seen, and then play Miami and just lay an absolute egg and just look absolutely terrible. And then he's liable to play Miami and beat Miami and then come back the next week and lay an egg. You just never know. Pittsburgh has a really good defense one week, a really good offense one week. But Miami, in my opinion, they go 11-1, and that loss is out of conference on the 7th of November against Notre Dame. And I could see them going 12-0, but if you watch my videos long enough, you know that I never pick teams to go undefeated because it's just too hard to go undefeated. But any thoughts on any of this, please feel free to let me know. Let's go ahead and get our dad joke of the day in here. My friend Joyce learned how to clone herself. Now she is rejoiced. And that does it for today's Ref Brandon and the Todd Family YouTube video. Until next time, it's Ref Brandon saying, just like in pro wrestling, life will be over.